Good morning, and welcome to Flight 2025. This is your captain, Melanie and Lair. We are prepared to take off into the new year. We ask that all carry-ons, such as regret from your past, mistakes, and fears, be placed under a seat behind you. Please make sure your personal power and gratitude attitude are secured and locked in the upright position. This aircraft is a Boeing 2025 and is equipped with one main exit and two upper deck exits for every disempowering thought. All self-destructive devices such as shame, guilt, and doubt should be turned off at this time. All blame, hurt, and limiting beliefs should be stowed away. Should we lose altitude under pressure during the flight, reach up and pull on gratitude and love, connect to source, and breathe in deeply. Once your faith is fully and automatically restored, we then encourage you to assist other passengers in need. Thank you for flying with me, and enjoy the ride. Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome to the Resolution Revolution program. Yesterday was our opening. I loved it. I've already loved seeing what's going on with you in the group. It's starting to pop already, so this is very fun. Today, we're jumping into the first core piece of this program. I'm very excited about it. So this has changed a lot of how I perceive life, and I'm going to share how I got to this piece. So have you ever realized, or did you ever notice that when we were younger, it felt like life happened on a bigger scale? It felt like things lasted longer. Christmas didn't just feel like rushed like it does as an adult. It felt like it lasted forever. And Valentine's Day felt like an entire experience. It didn't feel like one thing you had to hurry to go buy a card for. It felt like a whole life. And Easter was a whole thing. Like everything we ever did felt like it lasted for so long. Halloween lasted long. Everything lasted so long. And so I've contemplated this. And one of the things I realize is that when we're younger in the school system, they tend to create for us an entire context for the holiday ahead. So instead of living our lives like January, February, March, April, May, we live it like New Year's, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, summer break, return back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Like that's your life. It's from exciting thing to exciting thing. It's from holiday to holiday. It isn't just a month with a holiday in it. The month almost represents the holiday. And so as I kind of studied this concept, which actually does feel like it gives us a lot of life back, it's as if there's a context for every month, and the month fits inside of the context instead of trying to fit the context inside of the month. When you try to fit the context inside of the month, you have 30 days and you're supposed to fit Valentine's Day inside of it. But when you have the context of Valentine's Day and you have a whole month to see it through, that feels like an abundance of time to experience the thing that you want to feel. And so I started living my life with contexts. At first, I had a context for the year. So anyone here ever done the thing where you choose a word for the year? You ever done that? Do you remember what your word of the year was for 2024? What was it last year, your word? Remember? Devotion, trust, adventure, imagine, inspired, no idea. Power, community, legend. Okay, these are cool. So I've often heard people kind of mock the word of the year thing, but I think that anybody that doesn't get it is because they chose a word and then it didn't mean anything all year. What I really realize is if you pick a context, so not just a word, the word represents something. If you pick a context, it changes the lens that you look at the year with. And the fact is, in life, the lens is everything. If I have you watch a romantic comedy and you are in a brand new relationship with butterflies in your belly, like you haven't said I love you yet, it's all brand new, you keep your phone on during the movie because you might get a text message and you don't want to miss it, you're all dolled up at the movie theater because maybe you might get a text after, might go out for drinks, like you're in that stage. That romantic comedy feels a certain way through the lens of new beginnings of love. When you watch a romantic comedy and you're in a relationship that's on the rocks, you haven't said you're breaking up at all, but the feeling inside of you often is like, is this really what I'm going to be doing here? Like, am I staying in this relationship? Is this still what I want? Like, you question that often. And now you're watching a romantic comedy, you're watching it, and the lens is entirely different. Now, instead of feeling all the butterflies and the magic of the movie, you're feeling the lack between what you're experiencing in your relationship and what you're watching. You might even be thinking, oh, I missed the beginnings. Or maybe I should date someone new so I can live this. The same movie, totally different experience. If you just, if your kids are grown up and they're just starting in new relationships and you watch the romantic comedy, you might just be thinking about your kids the whole time. You don't even think of yourself. If you just got married, you might be like, oh, I can't believe I'll never have that new beginning love again, but I'm so grateful I love my partner. If you just went through a breakup, you'd be like, like it is a same movie, but the lens with which you watch the movie changes the movie. What I realize is that there isn't fundamentally that much that changes in a year from year to year. And so if we don't change the lens, it starts to feel like the same year over and over again. So when you have a year that you look at through love, for example, and you're like, this is the lens of love for this year. And you're like, how do I live January in the lens of love? How do I live February in the lens of love? How do I live the winter in the lens of love? The Valentine's Day in the lens of love? How do I live the summer in the lens of love? Like you could get really creative on how you experience this year, what you think about, how you celebrate, how you respond to things. It would be totally different if you really kept that word at the forefront of your mind. In the same breath, if you chose strength as a word, how do I go through January with strength, February with strength, the summer with strength? That'd be a totally different lens. So when I choose a context, I don't just choose a good word. I choose a lens that I think will make this year extraordinary. A context that I know if I stay connected to that lens, I'm going to see life different than I have before. It's going to give me a different perspective and it's going to take me outside of just my subconscious, the way I always look at things. It's going to push me to have a deeper context for everything I look at, how I respond, how I live. So the context for my year this year is God zone. I want to live the year through the context of the God zone. Imagine living a January in the God zone, in the creator zone, in the zone of universal law, and you're allowed to use mine. I have no problem with that. Like you can absolutely use the God zone. I think it's a fantastic concept. If you looked, okay, how do I live Valentine's Day romance in the God zone? How do I live my winter in the God zone? How do I sit by a fire in the God zone? How do I sit by the ocean in the God zone? How do I travel in the God zone? How do I have deep, important conversations with people in the God zone? How do I get closer to my family in the God zone? How do I have more real relationship with my friends in the God zone? How do I get closer to my fiance in the God zone? How do I, raise my nieces and nephews and be a part of their growth in the God zone? How do I be? That lens would make for an outstanding year. So when you're choosing your context, I want you to be aware that you're not just using a good word. And this is what I tend to see on the internet is like people just choose a word and it's like if the word sounds sophisticated and if the word sounds noble, then it's a good word. But the fact is you might find that you chose your word for validation reasons. So people would say, "Oh wow, I love that word." In which case your context for the year is validation again. And you might find that that has been the lens multiple years. So I love the God zone, but you could get super creative. Like you could have a context for your life that's like, I want an alphabet context for my year. Like I want to look at the world through defying gravity. Like I want to look at the world through that lens. You could have a context of art. You could have a context of devotion, forgiveness, softness, feminine energetics, goddess. You could have a badass or a boss context for the year. You could have so many different lenses and it would change your year. And what's fun is you can choose a context this year, knowing next year the context will be different, knowing from year to year, you're going to look at things with just a little bit of a different angle. So you can have more than one, but what I would suggest instead is to have an overarching context for your year and then choose a context for each month as well. So, for example, I might have the God zone context for the entire year, and I will add on to that the context of rest and self-care for January. So I'll have rest and self-care in the God zone for January. And for February, I might have romance and connection, like romance in the God zone for February. And for March, I might have like manifesting or believing in miracles, for example, plus the God zone. So you can layer contexts. And I think that is the best way to do it is when you're able to stretch your capacity to be that conscious, you can layer your context. You can say, it's this plus this. I already look at the world through this lens. So let's say this year you choose love as a word. Next year you want to be like, all right, I'm done with love. Love's out. We're done with that. This year we're going with something else. You would say, after a whole year of looking at life through the lens of love, I would love to add to that this because love is now second nature to me. I've lived an entire year connected. Oh yeah, layering the context, pun intended. You can say the lens of love and the lens of the God zone. Then it can be the lens of love and the God zone and something else. But that takes a lot of awareness or mental capacity because that means you need to be remembering all of them. So again, there's no limit to how many you can do, but if you're not going to do it because there's too many, what's the point? The goal of this is really that you do it. And if there's too many, sometimes it's just hard to stay connected. But I do like breaking it down month to month. So one big overarching concept for the year, plus different contexts for each month. That's really going to make it magical. Now, this part I want to share with you because as an entrepreneur, this changed the game for me in business. So there are two different kinds of businesses. There's the businesses that have multiple different offers, and there are the businesses that have a few offers, and there are businesses that have one offer. So if you are in business right now, can you tell me, do you have multiple offers? Do you have a few, or do you have one? So multiple, 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 one service, a few, multiple, multiple, a few. Okay, so we've got a spread here. So let's say for me, I have many. I have multiple offers. So it helps me to have a context because I can say January is rest and relaxation, but it's also creation and planning and all the things, but cozy, like cozy by the fire, cozy in the winter, cozy sitting outside reminiscing, having moments like it's a whole situation. So if I've got this context for January and I add resolution revolution to that mental context, I can really be in alignment with the selling of my program, the delivering of my program. I'm in the zone with the context of the program, which magnetizes people even more to what I'm doing. Now, when February comes, it's going to be Femme Fatale. Kevin and I will add modules to our Manifest program. It's going to be all about the goddess. It's going to be about love. It's going to be about romance. Plus, with everything that I'm feeling in January of self-care, that's going to be a great time to sell Femme Fatale. Selling Femme Fatale in the context of self-care will get a lot of sales. Delivering Femme Fatale in the energy of love is going to be such a beautiful thing. So it makes it that when you're watching my social media, and if you're not connected to me on social media, honestly, I think it's a half experience to just be in my programs and to not see who I am in the process because the things I do and what I think about and what I write and what I share, it always supports the program I'm in. So it'll inspire you even more. So if you're not friends with me on Facebook, add me as a friend on Facebook. If you're not following me on Instagram, I've got Melanie Layer and Alpha Femme on Instagram. Follow me, because it's like you're going to get to see how I put this in practice. So you'll see in February, there's the romance energy. It's all in there. So by the time we're talking about femme fatale, by the time we're talking about um, manifest, it just is so on brand already, and it's so easy, and the context is there, just kind of flows. So when you choose a context for your month, you can also use it as a sales strategy for a different program. So if you have multiple offers, you could think to yourself, what's the best month to sell this offer that's already in context with the lens I want to see the month with? Then you're not feeling disjointed in your life and in your marketing. This is one of the ways I have felt so free in my life, is that everything's in alignment with how I feel. Everything's in alignment with what I'm living. I don't have to go out of what I'm experiencing to sell something that's different. I really build it within the context of my life. Now, if you only had 2 or 3 offers, you could have different angles. So for example, if I'm selling femme fatale,